On the Level Talk Show.
You're tuned to On a Level with Ankhobia. This is Muta Baruka.
Get ready for some of the hottest talk on radio. The On a Level Talk Show addresses issues that matter to you.
Ankhobia with On a Level.
Okay, moving on. So we've established that Garvey's very clear that you've got to dig within yourself.
Change your mindset.
In order to change your mindset, and you've got to see we're all equal. You can do what the next man can do, the next woman can do. There's no excuses.
We can do it better as well.
Yes, you can take it to a next level, yes. And
it's all right to say that.
most certainly. And he goes on to talk about, that you can't be happy living in luxury and then your brother is living in disease. And then when you try to help the one out of the disease, the culprit talks about this loyalty. The culprit, is he on about the rich person is the culprit?
Yeah, the culprit is the person who's actually keeping you in the situation. So it's the person, it could be actually insinuating the Europeans, or it could be even insinuating black people themselves.
Oh.
Got a bit further and think that you shouldn't be talking about this black people. You shouldn't be, because there are black
No, because he's saying the culprit talks about disloyalty. Disloyalty to who?
To our own.
Mm-hmm. For helping somebody.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, for helping somebody who's poor and down in the gutter.
Own people here,
okay,
who's in the gutter, they're saying that we're being disloyal to them. That's what I'm saying. So it's either the Europeans or the people who are working for the Europeans, because they want us to help them to build up the European thing. So when we say no, how about my brother here who's down
in the gutter?
I want to go and help him. They say that you're being disloyal. I'll be saying no.
Yeah.
No,
and also because they wanted to create a superior class. W.E. Du Bois and those guys wanted to create a superior class of black persons.
Yeah, like that. You've heard them talk. Yeah, I think you've...
The boule or something. Yeah, them kind of people. Yeah.
Skin. God was well against that.
Oh, big time.
That's why he had so much problem against W.E.
That's why that speech on colorism done by Rasti was brilliant. Wow, brilliant. That was brilliant. Okay, so he's saying again, we gotta help. Do you know what I mean? Help each other. And then there's a song by Kelly's, with one of the guys from Outkast, and she says, "Papa, I'm a millionaire, but something ain't right." And she's going on, I'm a millionaire, something ain't right. I'm not rich though until she is rich and he is rich and we is rich. And I love it because I know exactly what she's saying. That's what Garvey's saying. You got to, if you've got some sort of wealth, you've got to help others. Okay. He then talks about
specific within
your own. Yes, most certainly. Okay. He talks about black men of Carthage, black men of Ethiopia, of Timbuktu, of Alexandria, gave the likes of civilization to the world. He says, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God, and princes shall come out of Egypt. So he's given us two things. This is what you've done in the past, your ancestors. Even though he's talking about men. I know some feminists have taken concern with that he was just all about the men. But he's saying, this is what you've done in your past. And then he says, Ethiopia and Egypt. So he now brings Egypt into the mix. In the future, using the Bible, you're going to stretch out your hands unto God. And he didn't say princesses, though. He says princes shall come out of Egypt.
It's just a time, It's just a time.
Okay. I haven't got a problem with it. No, I always what he was saying.
At the time, and we must.
I know he spoke very highly of women, and he said he rarely had problems with black women in the organization. He said the problems was always with the men. Where a woman did give him an issue was normally because of some man told her to do something. He said it was rare. It was So I know he held black women, us as African women, in high regard.
That black women had more authority, had more access, and more respect in Marcus Garvey's movement at that time more than any movement in America, any movement in the Caribbean, any movement in Africa at that time.
Yes.
Marcus Garvey made sure that
there was
male and female was on an equal par in the sense that.
But there was some men in the organization who didn't like that, though.
There's men now
because Mrs. Garvey talked about she had to get a gun.
Yeah.
She had to get a gun when Garvey was in prison to keep one or two people in order because they didn't like the fact that she was a woman telling them as men what to do. And some of her writings were she's she's a real feminist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
Because it was
some of her
disgusting.
writings are very strong about her thoughts on some of the men at the time and what they were going on with in the organization and what they were doing to obstruct the progress of the women. And
That
there
wasn't Marcus Garvey.
Yeah, yes, yes,
Just make
yes.
clear that Marcus Garvey, he definitely dealt
gave
with
them positions of
the
power.
highest positions in any organization at that time.
Okay, he's taking us back to our history. So he's showing you've just been enslaved for 300 years down here in America, the Caribbean, and various parts of the world. But look, your history is glorious in terms of where you're coming from. But not only is it glorious, not only have you got the past to fall on, you've got something in the future to look towards. Why is he using this Bible, princes shall come out of Egypt once we stretch forward our hands?
Well,
Ethiopia.
The Ethiopia,
Because Egypt is in Africa, isn't
Psalm
it?
68, that is. That is if you
Psalms
read
what, sorry?
68.
Okay.
I think
I
it's
mean,
68,
he knows
23.
his Bible, man.
Yeah. No, that in our struggle as African people, and I'm not just talking about in the last 300, 400 years, that particular verse has come up within our history for thousands of years. From the first African people took that Bible from the Ethiopians and back in the days of ancient Ethiopia, that scripture has always been a major part in our revolution. So when we get to that speech there, at the time, you will go and if you read any person around Marcus Garvey's time who's championing Ethiopianism, they're going to use that verse. If you even put into your Google that verse, you will see that verse has been used more than any other Bible verse amongst black people as a.
Why? Why are they using it? Why are you stretching your hand? Why are we stretching our hands out to?
Because it's to God.
To God.
Because again,
haven't we always done that? Haven't we always been godly?
In the perception of people, as I'm saying, this is one of the fundamental things that Garvey did for me. He grounded me in a spirituality where I can see my God as Ethiopian and so forth. That's not normal. That's not a usual thing. And because when people are talking about we've all got the Bible, all of us have got the Bible, whether we're Christians or whatever, particularly in this time, there's a lot of Christians in the time. And I'm saying that scripture is one of the few scriptures. There's others, but that scripture definitely shows that African people have a particular relationship with God, that God is going to redeem them at a certain time. So there's a hope in that scripture. That's a prophecy to most Africans that at some time in history, God is going to turn his hand towards us, and we're going to offer him the gift and so forth and whatever. So that's like a prophecy of hope for black people. You understand? Ethiopia shall stretch forth their hands and princes will come out of Egypt. It's a prophecy in the Bible. And some people even today, even when if you go to the Bible class, we ask them, what does that scripture mean? It's still not fulfilled to some people, but it is seen as a prophecy. It's not just a Bible verse. You see what I'm saying? So you could use that, but black people could use it to say, look, God is going to come and help us. You understand? We're close to.
So why didn't God come and help us, like when in the heights of slavery?
No, but this is what I'm saying. But this is what Garvey's saying. Garvey's saying that the whole of this process that we're going through, everything that we're going through, is to lead us to a time when we turn back to God. It's we who turn to God. It's not God. We have to turn back to God so God can then help us. You understand? That's what Garvey's coming from. You understand? It's coming from that we, as African people, as it says, we are equal, and so forth. But he's saying that there's a time going to come, listen to the scripture, when Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God, you understand? And princes shall come out of Egypt. That is our deliverance. You understand? So he's not actually saying God's going to come and help us. He's saying that we are going to turn ourselves back to our God. You understand?
So that gives us the idea then that we've turned away from God? Is that what you're saying?
The situation that we're in. That's what he's saying. Well, that's what the whole thing's about. That's what the whole thing's about. The whole thing's about the reason why these people have certain powers over us because of our behavior. That's where Garvey comes from. You understand? Because of the leadership of our people. That's why we're in the situation. The reason how we get out of the situation is the things that we do.
We're going to come to that now because he talks about that.
Yeah.
In the moment. But just before we get there, Yeah, because I don't want people thinking, I'm not into this idea. You know, sometimes you hear the Hebrew Israelites say, well, we were enslaved because we turned away from God and we were worshipping idols and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm
No, it's
not
like
even,
that.
I'm not
It's like
even
that.
dealing the trying to hear that nonsense. Okay.
But Africans will tell you themselves the reason why we're in this situation because they didn't listen to the ancestors. They never followed the ancestors. That is why we're in this situation. The situation that we're in, and this kind of gives us a bit. I mean, for me, it helps me a lot, to be honest. I don't know if it helps, but for me, and Garvey tells us, the power that they got over us is not divine. It's not a divine power.
Yes.
Some people think it's a divine power. It's not a divine power. They've been allowed to do these things. You understand? They've been given.
Is it a case of
because of
manifest destiny?
Yeah, because we haven't done the things that we're supposed to do to protect.
Okay.
That's why they can do these things. So it's a wake-up call, you understand, for us to say that we have the ability to change our circumstances. If we're in this situation, it's because we haven't done the things that we need to do for ourselves. And if we do the things for ourselves, then God will bless us. The whole speech is about that. God will bless us when we start to do the things that God has made us to do. When we start to be Africans, when we start to be black people, God will bless us. That's what he's saying. So we have to stretch forth our hands to God as Ethiopians, as Egyptians, not as black people. He's made that a point. But we have to turn back to God, whichever God you're going to call.
Yes.
Our God, one God of all ages. And then that's how we get delivered. So it's character.
Ankhobia, empowering the community with the On a Level talk show.